Greetings, Trekkies! Today's block consists of many well-acted premises stretched very thin across their run. This is Best of Trek, Worst of Trek. I'm your host, Dustin Wing. Forgetting yourself at 207, Instrument of Destruction, or Conundrum. In a surprising twist, Deanna Troi is totally capable of beating Data at chess, and it earns her one of those sweet, sweet Sumerian sunrises. Meanwhile, a scan comes out of nowhere and causes the show's drunk cam to follow our heroes on the D for a minute before settling and introducing us to a new first officer, at the expense of the entire crew forgetting who they are. But remember how to work the basics of the ship. The lack of short-term memories leads to some interesting juxtapositions, the best of which is enemies Riker and Ro hooking up. Turns out a race with limited ability to project war does have a device that can wipe out memory and brings others, like the Federation, in to win their war for them, against an equally technologically unimpressive race. The Lycians, whose central command is a reuse of the Edo god from the least clothed people in the history of Trek. Picard reasons out that none of this war makes any sense, and the crew kills McDuff. This episode is pretty standard over-the-top sci-fi, but won an Emmy for special effects. Though I'm not sure what was particularly interesting effects-wise in this one. Retconning some makeup at 205 and 206. Explanations. Or Affliction and Divergence. This decent two-parter in Enterprise's final season seems to have been further retconned as to not have had the widespread consequences for Klingon society it sets up. I'm not one of the people who's overly worried about Discovery creating new Klingon makeup, but they literally had an easy out here to not spend millions on makeup when they could have just ordered a boatload of bushy eyebrows. Anyway, while at Earth, so Trip can switch engine rooms and become NX-02 Columbia's chief engineer, Hoshi and Phlox are attacked and she's left to be the recipient of T'Pol's first initiated mind meld. They figure out that Klingons have the good doctor who's been asked to work on a cure to Klingon hijinks. Their attempts at using augment DNA on themselves had some nasty side effects, including making them look human. Heading into the second episode, Enterprise is caught in a speed on a starship scenario, and I'm not going to try and understand how Columbia, with the same speed limitations as Enterprise, can leave space dock second and catch up to it before their engines explode, or be able to hold the warp field beyond warp 5 for 2 ships worth of mass. But it's a cool spacewalk contriving a way for Trip to come back to Enterprise literally right after he left. Columbia's inaugural mission now becomes entangled in Klingon shenanigans in a battle to rescue Dr. Phlox. And there's the added side plot of Reed being part of early Section 31. And like the Undiscovered Country, its high-ranking officials in both Starfleet and the Klingon Empire conspiring with unintended consequences. But Agent Harris is betrayed in the end. The high point of this interesting cluster fluff of a two-parter is Archer being part of the process to a cure, developing Klingon ridges for a while, and generally Scott Bakula does some great suffering acting in this scene. Being at the wrong place at the wrong time at 204, stepping in it, or the Andorian incident. This is the episode where Enterprise finally feels like it hits its stride and finds a decent but still totally Trek standard episode of television introducing everyone's favorite recurring Trek actor Jeffrey Combs as Shran. Too bad during its initial run, many viewers, including myself, had already tuned out the series by its 7th episode. Since it's along their course, Archer wants to visit a thousands-year-old Vulcan monastery, only to find it under siege by his ultimate blue-skinned frenemy. After roughing Archer up for a while, he actually helps prove the Vulcans are using this place as a listening post against the Andorians, and lets Shran and his men go in peace with the intel. It's a premise stretched thin against the runtime, but acted at a very high level. Playing a little game at 2:03,
Resident Evil 3.
Or Empok Nor, a classic predictable horror plot where Garrick's the bad guy? Yes, I'm here for this, 100%. Even if it leaves everyone you've never heard of dead and gives O'Brien a chance to go old school Cardi hunt in DS9's late stage penny pinching days, where, unlike the old school Planet of the Week, on the rare occasion they stray from the station itself, we're on the Defiant-classed Valiant, or the station's duplicate sideways version like Empok Nor. There's literally nothing else to say about this episode except go watch and enjoy. Searching for the truth at 2:02, Taboo on You. Or Stigma. Born out of a 2002 directive from Viacom that all TV shows in their umbrella do an episode devoted to AIDS awareness, which, at its most base level, presents itself in the script through T'Pol feeling the guilt and stigma from being the recipient of a debilitating disease, just because mind melds are taboo at the time. The act of her reaching out, even covertly through Phlox, to help herself nearly costs T'Pol her place on Enterprise, and is only saved at the expense of another physician to bring it up against her wishes after making known that her mind meld was forcible. It's the only episode to do this topic justice in Trek. The B-plot about one of Phlox's wives coming aboard and hitting on Trip in an uncomfortable sexual harassment moment, though, could have been paired with a better episode, but isn't Enterprise's worst sexual B-plot either. Suddenly Human at 2:01, Emotional Damage. Or Riddles. Hot off the heels of T'Pol, Voyager's resident Vulcan loses his memory while on an away mission in the Delta Flyer, and struggles with being a diminished husk like Uhura after her encounter with Nomad, whose one annoying but true friend Neelix helps him through this troubled time. After 5 seasons of Vulcan rigidity, it's interesting to see Tim Russ get a flash of some emotion and be vulnerable for a minute. Janeway employs a ghost hunter of sorts from a neighboring system that has a record of cloaked beings operating in this area responsible for Tuvok's condition. They go in, search for answers, and are able to gain knowledge to help their chief of security in exchange for secrecy and not giving away the means to decloak them. This is easily some of the best interactions between Neelix and Tuvok during the run of Voyager.
Ah, computer.
That program is available.
Thanks, Major. Thanks, Major.
A full biographical listing is not available.
Thanks, Major.
Can't find my cat or my kids or my phone, it's a mystery.